You're listening to Free Mama Radio, where we believe you can have both a successful business and show up as the mom you want to be. I'm your host, Lauren Golden, a mom who built a full-time income working part-time hours. Now, I help other moms like you learn how to work from home on your own terms, take control of your schedule, and make more money so you can live a totally awesome, guilt-free life. I am on a mission to make sure that no mother has to choose between family and financial stability. So if you've been wondering, can I really have it all? This podcast will give you the answers.
All right. Okay. I'm so excited because we have a guest this week here at the Free Mama, but she is not a stranger. If you are a fan of FreeMamaTV, you may recognize her face because I've interviewed Kailey before. If you are not a FreeMamaTV watcher or fan, get on over to YouTube and become a subscriber fast because we put out new videos every single week to help you guys. Kailey is a business attorney and mom of two. In her law practice, Brand Law Boutique, she helps entrepreneurs protect their brands with trademark registration and provides attorney-drafted contract templates for service providers inside her shop, Contractista. She is one smart cookie and beautiful, no? Kailey left her position as a trial attorney when her daughter was born to create a law firm that allowed her to be present and flexible for her family. And now she helps other attorneys do the same. Welcome, Kailey. So glad to have you back here.
Thank you, Lauren. I've missed you. I'm glad to be back.
I have missed you. And you did take a little bit of a hiatus because you took a maternity leave. And we'll get to that in a second, because I know that there is so much that other women inside the Free Mama community can learn about being a business owner and maternity leave. It's a topic that comes up a lot. In fact, we're working on an episode of Free Mama TV answering some of those questions. So I'm excited to hear your take on that. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about, let's back up to how you got into your first career. I mean, it's not one that doesn't come without schooling and studying and exams. So you worked really hard to get into this career. Kind of what led you to law in the first place? How'd you build this amazing career for yourself?
Okay, yeah. So I think take it back all the way back to probably I'm 14 years old. And I wanted to be two things. I wanted to be a mother first, and I wanted to be a lawyer. So I say, the second part of that was negotiable. I could have done something else professionally, but I always wanted to be a mom, which, then leads to the business that you see today. But I was raised by a lawyer mom. My own mom is an attorney. And it's also, it's something throughout my high school and college years, I thought, the law is something that you can apply to any passion you have. So I went through a stage where I wanted to save the whales and I thought I can be an environmental lawyer or, like children, whatever it is, whatever your passion is, you can apply the law to it. Also, I am an Enneagram type 8. I'm the challenger. I might not come across like that, but I am. So, I'm a very friendly, laid back challenger. But yeah, so get me on the soapbox about those issues that I am passionate about, and then you'll see that come out. So it's something also that I thought I would be good at. So as I go through school, I was always kind of planning to go to law school. I took a little gap year there. I went to China. I met my husband in China. I actually took the LSAT in China. Wow. And with no indoor heat, it was quite an interesting experience. And then I came back to the US to go to law school. And I think like a lot of women, whether you're in law or any profession, even when you're going through university, if you haven't yet had kids, if that's still in your future, you're thinking about your major, your education, what your first job is going to be. And you may know that you want to be a mom, someday as well. But a lot of us don't think about how those two are going to go together. Like, what is it going to look like when I'm a lawyer and when I'm a mom? So my journey to the business that I have now, it was partly a long-term plan without a lot of the details figured out. So the details came later on. But long story short, I was a trial attorney. So I was in court all the time. I was a federal prosecutor in Manhattan when I first started out. And then we moved to Missouri. And so I was at the AG's office in St. Louis. So I was in the courtroom all the time. So to me, the practice of law was not flexible. And I made decisions along the way in my career so that when we did have kids, I would have the option of being flexible with them. So go backward to when I was a prosecutor in New York. I had a law professor that was also like a good friend of mine. She was probably the youngest law professor in the world. I think she was like 36 years old. So she was kind of like that mentor who felt like a peer in some ways. And my husband got a job opportunity out in the Midwest. And so I was thinking about what I was going to do. And I was planning to resign eventually and move out to the Midwest. And and she knew that I had worked very hard to get to where I was. And she was trying to encourage me. And she said, like, well, why does it need to be you that, that gives this up? Like, can he move here? And honestly, at the time I was making more money than he was. So that could have made sense. And my reply to her was, well, this is my long-term, I want to have the option to be home with my babies when they're little. And I don't think it, furthers that plan or behooves me in any way to have an unemployed husband while I'm like, tracking forward. And then I actually limit my own options. And she was like, that's a good point. Anyway, so come out to the Midwest, but I didn't have a clear plan of what I was going to do if and when I stepped away to have a baby. So I was pregnant with my daughter, Grace, who's now 4.5. And at first I thought I'll just take like a year-long maternity and, and I'm sure I'll be able to go back to work after that. And then I started seeing, people online with these kind of freedom lifestyle businesses. And I was thinking, well, I can't do that and be a lawyer, because what I knew of the law was constantly being in a courtroom. I was very not flexible. So I remember seeing the story about this couple that they were both CPAs and they would spend like half the year in Bali filing tax returns. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, like, wow, I really chose the wrong career. I should have become a CPA because I would be in Bali right now if I was just a CPA. So I went through this evolution of seeing different things and meeting different people, and then finally coming to the conclusion, which was partly like a hope and a dream because I didn't see a great example of it in front of me. But this inkling that actually I think that a freedom lifestyle business is possible within the law. There are just a lot of things that I'm going to need to change. First of all, a flexible practice area. I need to be practicing in an area that gets me out of the courtroom all day. And then I started noticing what was working for people in other industries. So if I was going to be my own business owner, I wanted to have a brand that I liked and that resonated with my ideal client. So not like a stuffy suit standing in front of a courthouse. And so that I just took a lot of tips from people in other industries and built the business that I have today. And that was when Grace was a couple of months old. I started doing this. And then I forget exactly how old she was, but at some point I knew that we wanted to have a second child. And I thought, well, at that time I was in the space of providing just one-on-one services to clients. And so, I'm trading time for money as you talk about. And I thought, wow, if I added another kid to the mix, or I needed to go through that newborn stage, I'm not sure how I would do that, and maintain the same income. So Grace inspired Brand Law Boutique, which is my law practice. And then William, who is now 7 months old, he inspired Contractista. And so, partly Contractista, to have any business work, there needs to be a demand for it, right? A need or a desire for what you're putting out there. And so the need and desire was definitely there. Those are contract templates. You need them for your business. If you're a service provider, it can be prohibitively expensive to go out and hire an attorney to draft that for you. And if you just grab something random from the internet, you don't really know what it is that you have. Until you put it up to try to see if it's, holding up in court. And that's not a great time to be coming to those conclusions. So there was a need and a desire. And then in my own life, this was it's not, no income is completely passive, but this is a digital product that I can scale my business with this. So as you know, as life does, it didn't all go to plan. It took longer for William to come into our family than I originally thought. So I had this business for about a year, I guess. Yeah, about a year or maybe more until I became pregnant with William. But I guess the also beautiful thing about that was I had a year of building that. So it actually was doing what I needed it to do once he came into the world, and we needed that extra margin in our life. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love all that so much. And I know we have some fellow eights listening. We have some fellow I should have been a CPAs listening. So for them to hear your story, I know we've got a lot of people who resonate, even if they are not practicing attorneys. So good. So you are pretty fresh off of maternity leave. I mean, your baby's only 7 months old, so not even to that year mark. And congratulations.
Yeah.
Just so exciting.
Thank you.
You had the little free mama onesie, which is just so exciting.
I know. Thank you so much for that. It's
I
adorable.
love it. It's like my favorite to see little babies with free mamas. I
know.
love it. So it, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's something we see a lot of people posting that, whether they, like you, Kailey, are trying to plan for something that maybe that seed hasn't even been deposited yet, but they know that it's on their heart and they know that it's something they want to plan for. And then we have women who come into our community, they don't even know about freelancing or this whole virtual world that, you know, you got to kind of watch and model for years, you know, as you were making your transition into motherhood. And they're like, I need a plan now. Like I need to figure this out quickly. So what are kind of your top tips, having just lived through this? And then, because I know you really did get to take some time back and you're really stepping forward again and trying to get more visible. And I think it's good because there is kind of this shuffle through life of when do I lean in and when do I lean out? So what are your top tips? I know you thought about it. How did you rock this maternity leave? And maybe what also like didn't go the way that you thought it would?
Yes, and a lot didn't. So if you're in the situation where you need a plan now, refer to steps 2 and 3. But one is my tip is to have a long-term plan for those expected and unexpected periods of leave from your business. So when you are self-employed, you can't just go out on, you know, FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act leave. You don't have coworkers to just cover for you. So you need to be making those plans for yourself in terms of your time and in terms of your finances. And so that could be a pregnancy. It could be, you know, even just projecting into the future, potential planned or unplanned pregnancies. It could be a medical emergency of some other sort. It could be
6-week RV trip.
Need to step in. What? I'm sorry. What did you say, Lauren?
I said 6-week RV trip.
Yes.
I mean, really, when you're talking, I mean, yes, sometimes it is this more like life-altering event, but it's the same shuffle that we have to use as self-employed, that we don't get 2 weeks built in to our schedule where we just get paid. But on the flip side of that, you don't just get 2 weeks built in. You can take a vacation whenever you want if you have a plan for it and you're prepared to do what you need to do to still make, you know, your goals.
Right. And you were talking about, I think it was last week, pandemic proofing your business. Yeah. And it could be a pandemic, or it could be the 6-week RV trip that feels really non-negotiable in that moment, you know, or whatever it is. But, you know, the different seasons of life, the things that come up, you are the one who's responsible for all of that. And so having a long-term plan of some sort. Now, that might be that, let's say you have an existing business and you are a service provider, thinking about ways to scale that beyond yourself. And that's a whole other discussion, but thinking about ways to package your knowledge into digital products. Is it a template? Is it a mini course? Is it even like a masterclass? You don't have to go wild about it and think that you need to create a whole separate brand and have a 12-week course and all this. It could be an hour-long masterclass on the thing that you are an expert in, that maybe you do that live once and then it becomes evergreen, that people can download that masterclass, something simple. So it could be that passive income, or if you're not at that point, at least having a place and plan that someone can step in on some level. Maybe they're not going to, you know, provide the service that you provide to your clients for you, but let's say it's something unexpected, like you end up, God forbid, in the hospital or something for some reason, that either your spouse or your mom or your business best friend or a non-business best friend, just someone in your life has has the, your email and password that they can get onto your email. And there are like a couple emergency tasks, like maybe it's just letting your clients know, hey, Susan's in the hospital, so you won't be hearing from her for a week or two, something like that, so that that's not on your mind and you're checking those boxes. So having a plan in place before you need it, whether it's as long-term as I want to have a second child, so I'm going to build a completely different income stream, or, hey, honey, here's my password. If something ever happens to me, I need you to just log on and email these 2 people and let them know.
Yeah. And it almost seems too small to go handle, but it's so incredibly true. Like just this weekend, I was catching up on email, it's all the back to school time and new teachers and all of that, and sending home, like, here's the fire drill at school. Here's the tornado drill. Walk through this with your child. We're going to be practicing at school. We don't know if there's going to be a tornado this year or in the next 10 years, but it's about having that plan in place. So I love that.
Yeah. And as you said that, it's, when you start thinking about these things,
we do these things.
Oh, and I'll need to do this. I was actually thinking about fire safety like a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, when I was a kid, my parents had a ladder for us. And I'm like, I don't have a ladder. What kind of mother am I? Like, my dad was on the volunteer fire department, and we had like the suit under the bed, like just in case you hold it over yourself. Yeah. We're totally unprepared for that. So let me write that down. Fire safety plan.
Fire plan. Yeah. This is educational for the whole family. Okay. Awesome. All right. So step 1, get a plan in place. All right.
Yeah. And the next is, so when you're building a plan, or even if you're coming right up to it, building in margin for yourself. And so this more applies to specifically that self-employed maternity leave, building in margin, both in your finances and in your time. So this is something that, in terms of building in margin in time, I failed at. And this is why. I was like, okay, here's my due date. I'm going to give myself a couple weeks before, so I can just have, a serene environment and get the nursery ready. And then I'll have, time after. And of course, he's going to be born on his due date. So so this plan is perfect. And then anyway, blah, da, da, da. I went to 42 weeks, and then I was induced. I was induced, but it was still like a natural birth. So it was a shark attack experience. It was wonderful. And then William came into the world. And because I had been so sure of this timeline, like it wasn't my first go around, but I don't really know what I was thinking. Then I had consultations that were like already coming up in a couple of weeks, because I had given myself like 6 weeks, and then I was going to go back super part-time. But because he was like 2 weeks, it just, it was like he had just come into the world when I had, something on my calendar for like 3 weeks from now. And anyway, so I should have been more flexible on that. I also kind of went into like superwoman mode, and my husband was like, well, why don't you just email them and tell them that you just had a baby and you need to reschedule? And I was like, no, I can do it. Like, you're here, you're off on paternity leave, it'll be fine. And so then I recall getting on one of my first consultations, and it like wasn't about the work. It just came up. I was like, oh yeah, I just had a baby. And they're like, oh, how old is your baby? And I was like, he's 2.5 weeks old. And they were like, why are we on the phone right now? Like, it was crazy. Anyway, so I should have not been so married to that timeline. I should have built in more margin, and then make your plan fluid and flexible, so that when you start, when baby isn't on time, or maybe baby is really early, that you're able to go back and change those plans and realize that it doesn't need to, go a certain way, and babies come on their own time. And the beauty of being self-employed is that you can juggle and adjust things. So that's something that I would
take advantage of it.
Yeah. So building in margin, of course, so that building in margin in your time, also building in margin in your finances. So, maybe with an employer, I mean, we live in the United States, so not a lot of people do have paid maternity leave, but some do. And then in some places, you might be able to take at least your sick leave, at least your vacation leave, and you don't have any of that when you're self-employed. So having a plan for that, and maybe even if it's an unplanned pregnancy, from that time that you realize a baby is coming in 9 months from now or in 7 months from now, starting to slowly but swiftly make a little bit of a financial buffer for yourself. And then, being cognizant of where you are financially and how much leave you're able to take. Now, depending on your business model, you might be able to have people come in and take those tasks off your plate. You may be able to even kind of switch your one-on-one services to a bit of a agency model. Maybe you can hire someone, a subcontractor, maybe that's a woman in this group, and you can hire them to take on those clients for a temporary period of time. Now, this is not to mix in contracts to this conversation, but that is a clause that should also be in your contract, that your client has also already agreed that you can bring on subcontractors to fill your role under the contract. So that's really important. And then in your pricing of that, try to not just cover your own time, but create an income through that. So ideally, you have enough margin built into your fees. So you're making extra, enough that you can go hire someone else, pay them a fair amount, that they're happy to fulfill those services for this fee that you're offering, but then you have a cut of it basically. So you still have income coming in and you have taken that off your plate. That would be a perfect solution. Let's say for whatever reason, that's not the situation you have, or you can't do that. At least, giving your clients a heads up so that they can, make their own plans, getting as much work done ahead of time as you can. So that's something that I did in my own business. A lot of my clients you can think of it more like a project than a retainer agreement. I don't really have anyone on retainer. It's all projects really. And so I was trying to get as much of that wrapped up and done as I could before I started, whatever the month-long maternity leave that I gave myself before I even had a baby, and then back on the phone when he's 2 weeks old. Oops. So that's something I would have done differently, but making a plan in terms of finances and time. And then the third point that ties into all of this is giving yourself grace and then recognizing that, there's a season for everything. So if you are in this online business community, and you're making your January goals, or even I feel like September is always a new beginning. Like it feels like the new year to me,
yes. Not
Not just because the kids are out, but like, for any of us that have been in school, like for what seems like a very long time, you're just in that routine of it's a new beginning, maybe even more so in practicality than January has ever been a new beginning. So anyway, losing my train of thought, right? Seasons of life. And you may have these goals of like, oh, I want to get 4 anchor clients, or I want to have my first $5,000 month, $10,000 month, I want to build to 6 figures. And there's so much focused on that. And it's so easy to just fall into the anxiety of that I think it's important to recognize that you don't need to give up those goals, but you don't necessarily need to make them a priority right now. Everyone in this group, or probably the majority of people in this group, the free mama, they want the same thing that you have, Lauren. They want the same thing that I have, and many of them have achieved that. They want the freedom and flexibility to be with their family, flexible for their family, and not sacrifice their finances or their ambitions in other areas, their other goals, but that there's a season for things. And right now, over the last 6 months, I wasn't focused on that. I was still in my business. You always have to keep growing your business, but I'm very cognizant of like how quickly this time goes by. And it's just crazy to me that we're already planning, like we're not planning, but thinking about his first birthday is going to come up in a couple of months. So yeah, just giving yourself grace and not burdening yourself with all these professional goals when you have a new baby on the way. That doesn't mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, I can't build this business because I have little kids at home. Well, you're doing it, I'm doing it. Yeah, I just started yet another, I'm saying I'm not in the season of growing. And then I just like started another business. Like I actually started another business in the last 6 months, a little bit longer than that, but teaching other lawyers how to do this too. But it's in a way that it's adding to my life. It's not taking away from it. And I honestly don't have, because I have built a sustainable business, I don't have the pressure on me of, this has to work out perfectly, or I'm holding myself to, this unattainable financial goal that is taking away from my family. That's not the point. The point has always been to be flexible for them. It's why I, stepped away from a career as a trial attorney. So anyway, yes, those are my goals. Have a long-term plan, build in margin, and then give yourself grace and recognize the season you're in.
I love that. And Kailey, one of the reasons I adore you so much, number one, you've personally helped me as an attorney, which is just fantastic. Number two, you are like this honorary free mama, where even though you are so doing your own thing, I feel like your lifestyle and the choices you've made so much resonate with the mission of our community. And so I know you've made a lot of friends and found clients in the Free Mama, which is awesome. But number three, the reason why I keep bringing you back to talk to everybody is what you do is really important for people in my community to hear about. And in full transparency, and we've talked about this probably on Free Mama TV, but certainly personally, it's what you are an expert at because you went to school for and you made your career, is something that I find holds some people back because we find it intimidating and we don't understand it and we don't know it. And, it's like trademark, what? Intellectual property contracts, like LLC, this stuff's scary. And you guys can go find out the difference between sole proprietor LLC. We're going to skip that today because we already have that information from Kailey's mouth for you guys over on Free Mama TV. But something we were chatting about before we started recording, which is really interesting. You were telling me, like, if there's one thing that I could tell free mamas, like, what they really need to know and do, this is that thing. So is it LLCs? What is it? What's that one thing?
Yeah, it's your client contract. And so, I'm not going to be mad at you if you don't form an LLC, if you're a sole proprietor, if you don't, run out to register your trademark, even business insurance. Like, people get stuck on all these things, just like you get stuck in learning mode. They get stuck in the fear of these items. And really the one thing that you need, the rest is negotiable, is a strong agreement to have with your client. And so whether that is the contract template that you're getting through Lauren, if you're in the program, if you're in the Free Mama course, or if you don't, getting it from somewhere else. So I have contract templates on Contractista. You can go through an attorney local to you. What I don't recommend that you do is two things. I don't recommend that you take on any client, exchange any service for money, or even a swap at all without a contract in place. And then I don't recommend that you just get a random template from somewhere where you don't know who drafted it and you don't know if this agreement is actually going to protect you, because like, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know if what is in there is all you need. When it comes down to contracts, like punctuation and the word choice can make a huge difference. And so just to dial it down, probably if we're talking about a contract and what is like the single most important clause even in your contract is your limitation of liability clause. And people ask me a lot, like, do I need business insurance? And I mean, I'm not upset if you go get business insurance, but I think it's a false sense of security. Just like you may have homeowners insurance and your house gets flooded and then you go to, call your company and they don't cover that. And errors and omissions insurance can be like that sometimes, that it doesn't cover the thing that you thought it was going to cover, the whole reason you had it. And it's really your contract that is going to protect you more. And that is so important to have. So yeah, if nothing else, have a client contract, and don't even go get a client unless you have a client contract in place.
That stuff. I love it. And we'll post the link and you guys can check out freemamaradio.com, and all of that will tell you how to get to Contractista. And I hope I'm not making this up. Do they get 20% off? Do I have this one?
Yes.
Okay. I'm like, I think that was going to be embarrassing if you had to go set it up because I just said that. So we're going to give you a Free Mama discount too, which is really super exciting. So I'll post all that information for you guys. If you don't have a contract, if you were getting started, if you're sitting there overlearning and overthinking all the things that you don't understand, which I get, it was what was hands down most intimidating to me. You heard it from Kailey. You just need a strong contract that you can understand, written by an attorney, and she can help you with that. So we'll tell you guys how to get that. Kailey, this was so much fun, as always, to connect with you.
Yeah,
one last thing for you that I always ask, and you know this because it's near and dear to your heart as well, but the mission of the Free Mama is to make sure that no mother has to choose between family and financial stability. So knowing that, knowing all the goodies that you shared today, especially about maternity leave and contracts and just your background, your beautiful story of becoming a mother of two and an attorney. What other little nuggets of wisdom? What have you not shared yet that your parting words for all the free moms?
Yeah. I think it all comes down to one thing, and that is that no one is going to come and knock on your door and offer you your dream life or even suggest it to you. You have to create it for yourself. And I think even if you know that intellectually, like you have to like let it simmer down to your bones and what it really means, like that no one is going to offer this to you. You're going to have to just completely create it for yourself. And you don't need to ask permission to do that either.
Oh, that was so good. Kailey, as always, thank you. I love
it was so good chatting with you, Lauren.
Thanks. All right, you guys have an amazing Monday and we'll see you next time. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Free Mama Radio. Don't forget to check out Free Mama TV right here on YouTube for hundreds of how-to videos and interviews to help you start, grow, and scale a virtual business from home. If you want to join a community of tens of thousands of moms just like you, make sure you join the Free Mama Movement group over on Facebook. And lastly, if you want to learn more about how we can do this together, work to achieve your goals, and make you our next success story, check out my free training at thefreemamamovement.com. I'll see you next time.